President Trump has pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. The president explained that the agreement was both economically destructive to the United States and virtually useless in preventing change to the climate. Al Gore countered those arguments by explaining, quote, "This is the apocalypse and everyone will die as sure as my name is Napoleon Bonaparte." As long as we had the Paris Climate Accord, everything was great, but now that our wonderful accord is gone, the earth is suddenly so hot I'm burning up right now and can hardly breathe, and all the water in my swimming pools has evaporated, and people are devouring polar bears in the streets. We have to start a revolution right away, although I still have 2 more episodes of House of Cards to watch, but right after that, we'll go on a big march to protest the fact that Donald Trump has single-handedly killed everybody, booga booga, unquote. EPA head Scott Pruitt further defended America's leaving the accord by pointing out that the accord penalized the U.S., which has been leading the world in reducing carbon emissions while requiring virtually nothing of India and China, who are among the worst polluters. Arguing against this, former President O'Hara, it's hard to remember his name now that his legacy is just a handful of dust that drifted through the air for a brief moment of time and then wafted to earth to mingle with the other dust, making it essentially just a big pile of dust. But anyway, President O'Krama made a statement saying, quote, "The nations that remain in the Paris Agreement will be the nations that reap the benefits in jobs and industries created, like the job of flying around the world in a private jet complaining about pollution, and the industry of selling people solar panels for their houses and then coming back the next day to sell them candles so they'll be able to read at night," unquote. President Pajama went on to say, quote, "In withdrawing from the Paris Accord, America has rejected the future, because if there's one thing I know, it's what's going to happen in the future. Just like climate scientists know the future, because that's what scientists do. They know the future. Or maybe that's what wizards do. I always get those 2 confused. Which one wears the conical hat with the stars on it?" Unquote. After making his statement, President Bahama left the podium and broke his nose by walking face first into a marble column, which had apparently been placed there by someone who didn't realize that the future didn't have a marble column in it on the spot where Obama was going to be walking in the future. So it was a whole future screw-up. We'll try not to let that happen in the future. In any case, it's easy to understand why Obama loved the Paris Accord. It was exactly like the Obama administration, hysterically loved by the left while hurting America and accomplishing nothing of importance. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shaped ipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
Hooray! The Klavanless weekend is over, and best-selling cultural correspondent Michael Knowles is with us today to talk about his Yale reunion and political violence in America, possibly at the same time. Yeah, exactly. Maybe they're happening the same way. You can't see this, but our entire office is in disarray. I mean, everything has been emptied out. We're moving offices, and everything has been emptied out. There are people like scrabbling for food who have been hungry all weekend. There's people, zombies wandering the halls. And that's because we didn't go to ZipRecruiter.com. See, if instead of hiring zombies, you can go to ZipRecruiter.com and you can post your job to 100+ job sites with just one click, and you can cut the zombies out. You know, just say no zombies. Then with their powerful technology, efficiently matches the right people to your job better than anyone else. That's why ZipRecruiter is different. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them. It just reaches out, says, "You're a candidate, we want you," at the Daily Wire. You are ripped out of your home and sent right here, and then you go right to work. It finds them. In fact, over 80% of jobs posted on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate in just 24 hours. 80% in just 24 hours. No juggling emails or calls to your office. Simply screen, rate, and manage candidates all in one place with ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use dashboard. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And right now, my listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, it's free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. One more time, try it for free. ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. It's got to be better than what is happening here, obviously. All right, I thought Now, maybe I'm alone in this, but I thought it was a great Klavanless weekend for Donald Trump. I know terrible things happened in London, and I don't want to get overly triumphant. Normally, after Trump had a weekend like this, I would play the Trump happiness montage. But in respect to the tragic things that happened in London, we'll just play a brief kafifi.
Despite the constant negative press,
It's a little more solemn, a little more respectful. But here's what I thought was great about. See, here's the thing about Donald Trump. I'm putting together pulling out the Paris Accord, which was a useless nothing. I mean, I love the arguments for staying in the Paris Accord. It doesn't require you to do anything. Well, then what difference does it make? I mean, so we pull out of it. But it was, in fact, the way it was written like a treaty. It had words like you shall do this, and we must do this, and all this stuff. And it would have just given the left carte blanche to sue every time somebody did something like repeal some stupid regulation that was hampering businesses and hampering jobs. So it was a good thing to pull out. It wasn't going to help. We've been innovation and capitalism have been really helping us cut back on carbon emissions, which is fine. But he was pulling out of the Paris Accord and his tweet storm after the horror in London, which people are picking on him about, and everybody's yelling at him about. You know, he tweeted immediately after London. He picked on the mayor of London, who is an appeaser. He's an appeaser, and like Trump went after him. He said we got to bring back the travel ban and all this stuff. And everybody's saying, oh, he's cold, he's mean, he's brutal, he's bully. Here's the thing: a lot of times in life, your strengths and your weaknesses are the same. You know, I work very hard. That's one of my strengths. But I also can be a workaholic. That's one of my weaknesses. I think this is true of virtually everybody. You know, you might be relaxed, and it might lead you to be lazy. It might be jovial. It might make you sometimes uncaring. All these things, all your strengths are also weaknesses. There is something uncouth and raw about Donald Trump that goes right up my spine as a couth, not raw person. I mean, as a civilized human being, there's something about him that goes right up my spine. But we have been living in a PC China shop for way, way too long, and he is breaking the China in that shop, and that is one of his strengths. I mean, when you pull out of this Paris Accord and you get the kind of insane reaction, this is the end of the world, it's all over, you know, it's a terrible, terrible thing. I mean, he pulls out, first of all, his speech was completely rational, completely fact-based, very calm, you know, very easygoing saying this is why I'm doing it. We'll play one cut from the Trump speech pulling out.
So we're getting out, but we will start to negotiate, and we will see if we can make a deal that's fair. And if we can, that's great. And if we can't, that's fine. As president, I can put no other consideration before the well-being of American citizens. The Paris Climate Accord is simply the latest example of Washington entering into an agreement that disadvantages the United States to the exclusive benefit of other countries, leaving American workers, who I love, and taxpayers to absorb the cost in terms of lost jobs, lower wages, shuttered factories, and vastly diminished economic production. Thus, as of today, the United States will cease all implementation of the non-binding Paris Accord and the draconian financial and economic burdens the agreement imposes on our country.
So now you have like Tom Steyer, who is this Democrat billionaire who probably wants to run for president, and he says this is a traitorous act of war against the American people. So that's a reserved, wise judgment. And here, let's just listen to Al Gore for a minute. I mean, this is the response. This is the opposition. One guy, Donald Trump, he's supposed to be a wild man. He's supposed to be a crazy man. He says, look, this isn't good economically. It won't have a big effect environmentally. We can do good things without it. I have to take care of the American people. Now, George Stephanopoulos is talking to Al Gore. Listen to this.
So does it really make all that much difference then if the United States pulls out of the Paris Climate Accord? Remember back, the United States under George W. Bush pulled out of Kyoto, yet the innovation continued after that.
Well, we lost a lot of time when did not join the rest of the world community then. And while it is true that we have this sustainability revolution underway, and it's very exciting, it has the magnitude of the Industrial Revolution, but the speed of the digital revolution. But we're still not changing fast enough. Because it's not just the scientific community warning us now, it's Mother Nature. Every night on the TV news is like a nature hike through the book of Revelation. 70% of Florida is in drought right now. Missouri just declared an emergency with another one of these historic climate-related downpours. We've had 11 once-in-a-thousand-year downpours in less than 10 years in the United States. So we have to move faster. It's good news that the rest of the world is. It's good news that states and cities and businesses are. But we need presidential leadership. Since he's not going to lead, the American people are stepping up.
So it's the book of Revelations. That's calm, you know, and all of his facts are untrue. I mean, there have been far worse droughts. It was worse. The Dust Bowl was a worse drought. I mean, the Dust Bowl was, in the 30s was insane. It turned, you know, a huge swath of America into the Sahara. That's when all you had the Okies and all that stuff moving to California to get away from. You know, it's like it's ridiculous. The storms. We don't have the kind of records where you can compare storms. But you know. Hurricane, they kept saying tornadoes were going to get worse, hurricanes were going to get worse. That hasn't happened. Tornadoes is a little different because there's a lot more people around and a lot better ways of communicating tornadoes. So we see more tornadoes, but there's no real evidence that we're having more tornadoes. It's just all nonsense. So on one hand, I mean, this is the thing that Trump, in his willingness to take this hit, in his willingness to have the press come out and say these things about him, because of course, as you know, on the mainstream media, one after another, oh, what a mess, the world is in a mess, this is so terrible, one after another, because he doesn't care that much, and he is willing to like walk into that china shop and break these things. These guys are exposed for what they are. If one guy is arguing this is bad economically and not that useful environmentally, and the other side is saying, oh, it's the book of Revelation, you know, who are people going to believe ultimately? And one of the things that the polls show, that a lot of people, like maybe a third of the people think this is a serious issue, but about 2 to 4% think it is a primary issue. So if you really believed this was the end of the world, it would be a lot more than 2 to 4%. And here is the other side of this, is this world, our relationships with the world. He's getting in the way. You know, when Barack Obama talks about people rejecting the future, I just love that, this idea. They know what the future is. The future is what is in their head, and if you don't like that, or you disagree with it, or you think the future should go elsewhere, you're not just against them, you don't have a different opinion, you are rejecting the future itself. So here's Fareed Zakaria explaining that how Donald Trump has essentially sold America down the river.
This will be the day that the United States resigned as the leader of the free world. It's nothing short of that. The irresponsibility of this act is breathtaking, because the Paris Climate Accords are actually extraordinarily flexible. They do not dilute American sovereignty. They allow every country to make its own plans. That's why countries that have jealously guarded their sovereignty, like China, like India, like Russia, have all signed on. There are 194 other countries that have signed on to this, including the countries that Donald Trump keeps saying always beat us in these agreements. They're all in.
They're all in. All the countries in the world are in, except there's 2, I think, that didn't sign. Why do you think that is? It's because it doesn't mean anything. It's because only the top guy, us, is going to get hurt. You know, wouldn't you sign on to a deal where the top guy said, oh, I'm not going to compete as hard because we're so far ahead of you, we're going to be nice? I mean, it's like, you know, it's like some AAA team signing on to an agreement that the Yankees are not going to bring up their cleanup hitter, you know? It's like of course they're all signed on. And we have absconded from our leadership of the free world by not obeying the free world, by not following the free world. I mean, this was Obama's leadership from behind that you're always following. So what I'm saying is the important thing, that the treaty itself was just going to be an annoyance. It was just going to be an annoyance. And by the way, since it was, in fact, the language of a treaty, and all the other countries ratified it the way treaties are ratified in their countries, why didn't we send it to the Senate, which is what you have to do to a treaty here? Why does it just have Obama's signature on it as if it were an executive order? And the reason is the Democrats weren't going to vote for it. The Republicans weren't going to vote for it, and the Democrats weren't going to vote for it because it killed jobs, and they didn't want to go back to their districts and their states and say, "Oh yeah, I killed jobs, but I saved the world from sunshine." Okay, so this is the thing. We have been wrapped into this fantasy world of climate catastrophe, and Trump, because he's a bull in a china shop, broke through it. I'm going to pause. We're going to have Michael Knowles come on, which we always enjoy. I don't know why. Why do we enjoy having him? He's a decent human being, sort of. But we're going to have Knowles come on, but you cannot see it if you're just on Facebook or YouTube. You'll have to come over to thedailywire.com. Sorry? Yeah. You'll have to come on to thedailywire.com, and while you are on thedailywire.com, you will have to subscribe because we say so. You must subscribe. It's only a lousy $8 a month, and if you subscribe for the year, you can get Ben Shapiro's new book, Say It So, Papa, Dad, Me, in the 2005 White Sox championship season. Follows that amazing season when the White Sox somehow, I think it was the last time they had won the World Series was, I think, 1642. And then they came back in 2005, and the Shapiros are big fans, and they followed every game. You can get that, and you can be in the mailbag, which is Wednesday. You can ask questions in the mailbag, so it's well worth it. Before we cut you off, we do want to tell you about Skillshare. And this is, here's one of the funniest things. I only wanted to do one thing in my entire life. All I ever wanted to do was write novels. Never wanted to write movies, but I've written movies. Never wanted to do anything else. When I look at my resume today, and I still write novels, it's still kind of the main thing I do. When I look at my resume today, a lot of the stuff that I put on my resume, the very words, didn't exist. Words like podcast, words like blog. When I was starting out, when I had ambitions and I said, this is what I'm going to do in life, many of the things that I'm doing didn't exist. I helped invent an app that was a movie app that delivered a movie into your iPad called Haunting Melissa. Apps didn't exist when I started out. So I would say, things that I put on my CV that are my credits, that I'm proud of, just didn't exist. And that is why things like Skillshare are so important. Skillshare is a website you go on, and it just has experts in their fields giving you little classes, little video classes about different things. It can be stuff that will help you get a leg up at work, or something that'll just be some new hobby that you want to take up. You can make yourself better at your job. I've been looking at some of their marketing things, some of their writing things that are really interesting. Some of the writing things, look, at this point I'm kind of an expert at what I do, but I can look at them and just say, do these things work? Are these things that I have found to be true? And yes, they are. And it's basically this online learning community with over 15,000 classes in design and business. You can learn anything from logo design to social media marketing to street photography. Unlimited access to all of this for a low monthly price. So you don't go on and start to get like 5 classes in and think, yeah, this is really good. And they say, oh yeah, but now you got to pay for the other 5 classes. You have one monthly price and you can go on all of them. And there's stuff in design like Adobe Illustrator, logo design, typography, animation, photography, marketing, entrepreneurship, and all these other things like just watercolors, stuff that you might want to take up for fun. For this, Skillshare is giving my listeners a month of unlimited access. So you can just try it out, which is worthwhile. It's absolutely free. Go to www.skillshare.com/Andrew and you get a free month. www.skillshare.com/Andrew for a free month. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Trumpster and then go on to talk to Knowles, but you got to come over to thedailywire.com because we're saying goodbye to Facebook and YouTube.